Hello and welcome to the Matt and Phreds Speakeasy podcast. My name is Claire Turner and I run our little family business with my sister, our parents and the wonderful Matt and Phreds team, two of whom are running the podcast show. David Smith Jr. and Ed Gallyot will be chatting to some of the wonderful musicians who play at the club here in Manchester. They'll be discussing musical inspirations, songwriting techniques and hearing a little bit about what makes each of the musicians tick. If you can, please visit the Matt and Phreds website at mattandphreds.com. Phreds is spelt with a PH, and check out our online shop. There's loads of goodies to buy, of which money will go towards helping musicians who have lost all of their gigging income during this COVID-19 lockdown. So, without further ado, over to you, David and Ed. Enjoy the show.
They stick to my mind, then they thicken with time. Father,
Lovely indeed. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Speakeasy podcast. My name is David Smith Jr. and I am joined, as always, by my co-host and my co-creator, Ed Gallyot. How are you today, Ed?
I'm very well, David. I'm very happy to have created you and to have you here to do this podcast with me. And I feel like we're in a relaxed state today, aren't we? Ready to dive into a fantastic interview with whom, may I ask?
Oh, well, I'm very pleased to say that we'll be joined by Jeremy Sassoon this week. Now, Jeremy is a piano player. He does lots of old soul classics in it, and he's just been doing a lot of live streams to raise money for the NHS. Now, isn't that wonderful?
That is so wonderful, and we're very happy to have Jeremy on board for Speakeasy because we've seen him a number of times at the club. But it'd be nice to delve into, what goes behind the magical covers, the magical voice, and the magical playing on all the stuff he's involved in. But first, what are we listening to right now, David? What is underscoring the jibber jabber that we are so eloquently portraying into our microphones?
Well, beneath our jibber jabber today, Ed, is the wonderful Sylvette. Now, these guys are an art rock masterpiece hailing from RNCM, and the intricacy of the music they create and the beauty of the vocals over the top is just, well, it's just wonderful, Ed. And I tell you, I've been lucky enough to see these guys live a few times, and they don't let any of that musicality get in the way of them just having a raucous old time on stage. It really is uproarious to see. So make sure when all is said and done and we are free back in the world to go and check these guys out. They're something very special.
And I'll certainly be doing that after that beautiful description of uproarious. So I think all that's left to do is let this play out, and we'll dive straight into our episode with Jeremy. How's that sound?
Now, very relaxing, Ed. Very relaxing.
Lovely
indeed. So here we are then with our guest for today's episode. It's Mr. Jeremy Sassoon. How are you today, Jeremy?
I'm very well indeed. Thank you very much, Dave.
That is good to hear.
You've had a radio interview this morning, haven't you, as well, on Radio 4?
That's right, on Radio 4, the Today programme. I never wake up at that time, so I've never actually listened much to the show, but you have to pretend you've listened to it all the time. But I played a little bit of music for them and had a little tiny interview with Nick Robinson. Nick Robinson's he's a great broadcaster, but he was a Manchester lad. People don't realise. He went to school in Cheadle-Hulme, and he's a big United fan. So if that wins him a few more fans up north, then so be it.
For a music podcast, we've had quite a lot of chat about Man United and Man City on here. It seems to be a running theme that we've got going on. And you've also been very busy as well. You've been doing some gigs in support of the NHS, haven't you, as well?
Yeah. So my history is that I used to be a doctor, and this is probably part of the reason the Today programme had me on. I used to be a doctor many years ago, a hospital doctor and a psychiatrist, and then I left it to come and do music, and I've been a musician for many years. So when all the gigs, kind of cancelled because of COVID, I just realised I still got a lot of medical friends, and they're all on the front line, kind of working really, really hard, and I'm just at home watching Loose Women, and just and I just felt guilty. I thought I've got to do something useful, so I decided to do these Facebook Live gigs that so many musicians are doing, but I thought I'll do it fundraising for the NHS. So I set up a fundraising page and decided to do 4 of these shows, and it's been unbelievable. After the first one we raised over 2,000 quid.
Oh wow.
And after 3, we've done 3 now, and we're up to 7,800, and there's one more on Saturday, but I've been doing it in conjunction with Matt and Phreds, because when I was thinking when to do the slot, midweek, evening, day, weekend, I decided to go for Saturday at 5 till 6, and it suddenly occurred to me that the only place that does gigs between 5 and 6 on a Saturday in the whole world is Matt and Phreds. So I called Claire and I said, do you want to get involved in this? Because I normally play at yours between 5 and 6. This is our slot. And she said yes, and Jordan came on board, and so Matt and Phreds has been streaming these shows as well as myself.
We've been watching it all the way, haven't we, David?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's really amazing the stuff that you're doing, and the amount you're raising as well is excellent. I mean,
thank you.
So without further ado, then I think we'll get on to some of the tunes. So could you just give us a quick introduction to the first tune that we're going to be playing today?
Yeah, the first tune is one of my favourite tunes. It's called The Wichita Lineman. It was written by Jimmy Webb, and it was made famous by Glenn Campbell. But so many musicians and famous artists have covered this tune. It's a real musician's song. It crosses all genres, really. The tune you're going to be playing was from a live gig I did at Pizza Express Jazz Club in Soho in London, and we recorded the whole gig and made it into a live album. My 5-piece band. There's a great lineup in the band. There's the drummer I brought over from Berlin. He's called Michael Kirsting. He's an amazing drummer who played with Chet Baker and Jaco Pastorius.
Wow,
that's some big names there.
Yeah, real chops.
He did a whole European tour with Jaco Pastorius and Borelli Legren. So I brought him over, and then Jasper Wilkinson, who many people will know from around Manchester and Salford.
I think he taught me when I was about 18, actually.
There you go. Genius.
Small
guy.
city.
Small city indeed. So Jasper's on bass, and then I picked up there's a couple of young guys that there was a guitarist I saw just about a year before this album, who I saw him play with another band at the 606 Club in London, and his name is Richie Aitman, and I just loved his playing, absolutely adored his playing, and so I asked him to play with me, and he was 22 at the time. And then another young player, the sax player, is from Darlington, but he was in Manchester, he was at Chet's, he was at the RNCM, and his name is Alexander Bone on saxophone. Yeah.
That is a good musician name.
Isn't it? He's remarkable. He won, I think it was the very first BBC Young Jazz Musician of the Year competition when it first started, I think that 2016. Anyway, so it's a cracking lineup, and so it's a lovely gig, and hopefully everyone will like the tune, the recording.
Lineman for the county, and I drive the...
So I mean, we were going to ask you a bit about that sort of the experience of recording it live. It's kind of it's an interesting way to release a record. Obviously, normally you'd go into the studio and do it. What was it about that? Did you feel that it was more exciting live, more true to it live, or was it just easier to do it that way?
The thing is, if anyone had told me I was going to record a live album, I'd have screwed it up completely. The thing was that it never intended to be an album. Basically, I wanted to get a demo video of the band, and so I got Pizza Express were videoing it for me. And with a demo video, you only need a few minutes of footage, so you're not really worried. So long as there's always going to be 5 good minutes, or 10 good minutes, or 30 good minutes. So the pressure was off, and I just let them video it. And when I actually heard it back, when we got the video back, the audio,
great set.
Yeah, the audio was great, and it was like, you know what? Let's make an album out of this. This is great. So when I was a kid, I don't know about you guys now, but kind of back in the day, everyone's favourite albums were always their live albums. I always remember live albums, we had something special about them. And so I was always a fan of that album. So this was unintended, and consequently, if people like the tracks that we're going to play, most of them I think are up on YouTube in video form as well.
It's a nice position to sort of land yourself in. You're looking for 5 minutes of promo footage, and it turns out you've got a music video for every song and a full album. That's incredible.
Exactly. I was lucky. I was really lucky on this.
A gift from the universe, that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this track as well, you mentioned before, is written by Jimmy Webb and then made famous by Glenn Campbell. But there's been a number of versions over the years as well. Is there any other versions that inspired you? Was there, is there any elements that you felt?
Well, it's really interesting. Which you're absolutely right. There have been loads. Are you thinking of any? I'm just wondering which ones you've thought of or know of.
It was only in doing research for this that I really got familiar with a bunch of the versions. I think is it John something was one of the ones I listened to as well. Honestly, I'm not super familiar with it myself. I was hoping you could enlighten us.
Yeah. No, the thing is, right, because I don't write original material, I make a point of not listening to the originals. This is the whole point, that if I hear an original, if I get used to it, I'll copy that original. It's just, naturally we all would, you know what I mean? You get it in your head. So when I decide to do a tune, I may hear it once. I'll hear it once, and and then I'll make a point of never listening to it again. So I try and avoid listening to the originals, kind of different versions before I do it. I suppose once I've done it, I probably could. But the answer is no. There's no particular other version that has grabbed me or that I listen to a lot. But as I say, part of that's deliberate, so that I kind of make it my own version.
Yeah, of course. So you just kind of got the outline there, and then you just sort of putting your personality onto the track beyond that.
That's exactly right. And I think, sometimes, it's like anything in music really, sometimes people can do a cover version and people prefer your cover to the original, or there's something about your own cover that people, that resonates with certain people more than others. So, like I say, because I don't write the songs, I like them to not be the same as the version, as much as possible. So, so this is one definite example of that. So compared to what is another tune from this live album that I did from the same gig, same musicians, it's funny though, I was talking about not listening to other versions of the same tune. This is an exception because there were at least two very famous versions of this tune. One was the one that I did on the album, the one you're about to play, which was based on an amazing version by Roberta Flack on the album that she broke through with. So when she was first discovered, there's an amazing album called First Take. And in fact, doing that thing on Facebook where people are asking you to put your 10 favourite albums of all time. I'm just about to post that one tomorrow. Roberta Flack, First Take. It's absolutely beautiful. So I fell in love with that, so I decided to do that. But there's another famous version of it by Les McCann and Eddie Harris, and that is an absolute cracker of a tune. Very jazzy, very jazz blues, amazing piano riff. So the Roberta Flack one is quite minimal. The Les McCann one is full on. And actually, funnily enough, after doing the Roberta Flack version for about a year or so after I did release that album, I then switched to the other one, and now I do the Les McCann version all the time. So I switch between the two depending on the gig. I love it. Love listening.
It's good to have like two different avenues to go down with that as well, isn't it? I guess like based on what the band is.
I don't know how you feel, what your energy is.
Absolutely.
Because we had noticed that the Roberta Flack version was probably the most popular of them. But we noticed it had been recorded by Ray Charles as well. We wondered if you'd heard of that, because we've watched you at the club, and obviously you have a great admiration for Ray Charles' music. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm not sure I knew that Ray Charles had done Compared to What. That's something I'll definitely look up as well.
We were just going to ask, what is it about these sort of style of tunes that attracts you?
Well, I'd love to be able to play, or for you to both hear this other version, this Les McCann and Eddie Harris version, and compare it to the Roberta Flack one. As I say, the Roberta Flack one is minimal. What I love about it, and you're going to hear it, but I think it's an 8-minute track, and literally the whole track is one riff that goes like this. And literally it does that for 8 minutes. There's nothing much to it, and in a way this really, as a musician and a band and whatever, that is a challenge. That really sorts out the men and the women from the boys and the girls. Because to make something not boring with just that riff for 8 minutes, and to build it so slowly, it is a real challenge, and I just thought the band really did that. So its simplicity is actually the challenging thing about it.
I mean, this version of it, the one on that we're listening to, it has so many different. I mean, it's got the solos in it, and everybody's playing their damnedest on this version. And we were just wondering, particularly the gentleman on the saxophone. What was his name, Mr. Bone?
Alexander Bone.
Alexander
on the
Bone,
saxophone.
indeed. He does a great job on this track, and we were just wondering, in terms of the solos and the grooves and stuff, how much of this is improvised on stage? How much of it are you hammering in at practice? Like, what's your sort of the way that you come about it?
It's a bit like Alex start, and then Alex finish.
that's as specific as it gets.
That's how it goes. It's complete and utter freedom. Again, I may say to Alex, because I think he does a blistering solo. I really do. I think the solo on this track, I think it's about 2.5 minutes sax solo, but it starts from nothing and it builds up and builds and builds and goes crazy. And again, I think that's a real skill. And I will have said that to him. I will have said, Alex, just build it, slow build, and take as much time, have as much time as you want, and just do your thing. That would have been the only instruction, and that's what he came up with. Absolutely remarkable. I hope everyone's going to enjoy listening to that. Yeah, so the way it is, this is the third tune, and the main reason I put this into my 3 tunes that you asked me for is because this tune goes down so well at Matt and Phreds. Basically, when I think of doing my gigs at Matt and Phreds, whether it's with my band, whether it's solo, the place goes crazy when I do this tune, and so I wanted to put a tune in there that is just well matched to the club. It was made
it's
famous.
such an iconic tune, isn't it? It's just
it is totally iconic. It's Bruce Hornsby. I don't know exactly the year, but it was probably in the 1980s. And it's a song, I mean, that's really sort of catchy. There aren't many songs that have a piano riff as its main thing, It's almost as iconic as, like Baker Street for saxophone or something like this. It's a piano riff, and that doesn't happen very often, so that was clever. The lyrics are sort of like our political and anti-racism statement, human rights song. So in these days of Donald Trump, I always dedicate, whenever I do this tune, I dedicate this to Donald Trump. I
hope he's listening. I hope he knows.
Does he listen to the Matt and Phreds podcast?
I should hope.
If
I should hope
he does,
so.
we're doing something right.
Or very wrong. Or very, very wrong.
Or very wrong, actually. Very wrong.
So the words are great, the vibe's great, the riff is great, everybody loves it. It goes down really well with all age groups actually. I find that, you know, a lot of the younger crowd and Matt and Phreds really like this tune as well, and you know, and the older crowd. So it crosses boundaries, this, everyone loves it. In fact, it's funny actually, I never played this tune. Sometimes as a musician you remember when you first played a tune, how it first came about that you were playing this tune. And I remember I was doing a gig, this must have been about 8 years ago. I was doing a gig in a casino in Manchester, Genting Casino in Manchester.
Oh, I know.
I think I know.
Yeah, up on Oxford Road.
Presumably you were just passing or something, right?
Of course.
We don't have enough money to be wasting at a casino.
So I did this gig, and I was doing this gig regular, and it really, you know, it was quiet, and it was, you know, if I may say, you know, it could be at times challengingly empty around where you were playing. But there was a barman, just a young lad, I think he was Eastern European, was at the bar, and he wanted me to tune me, so he kept saying, "Would you play me the Bruce Hornsby tune?" And I'd never played the Bruce Hornsby tune. Anyway, you know, eventually I remembered in midweek to learn the Bruce Hornsby tune for the barman at Genting Casino, and sure enough it ends up on an album of mine. I wish I could tell that guy, I don't know where to find him, but I'd love to be able to tell him that his suggestion, this
Perhaps he's listening as well. Perhaps if you're out there, do get in touch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just one of those things as well, isn't it, where I think because of the Tupac sample in there as well, it sort of managed just to stand the test of time as one of like the all-time piano lines, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely
I mean,
right.
do you feel any pressure, like playing a line like that? You know, something that's so iconic, as we said, and that sticks in people's mind. Do you ever feel any pressure to like make sure you're definitely getting it right, playing it with the same feel, or is it very much like, again, you want to put your own spin on it?
I want to kind of put, you know, when it's so iconic, you have to be true to it. You know, they don't muck around with things that are iconic, otherwise there's no point in calling them iconic.
Yeah.
If you'll pull down an icon, what's the point? So iconic things are there to be respected, so you leave the iconic thing. But I do it slightly differently, and when I listen to the original, again, as I say, it's something I avoid doing, but after I did this version, I went to the original, and I realised it was so much slower than the one. I'm doing it so fast, and I didn't realise how fast I was doing it. But this version is pushing it a bit, really, a bit faster. I think I'd probably maybe slow it down a little bit. But no, the iconic line you have to be true to totally.
Yeah.
The rest of it, again, try and do your own thing.
So that is it for us. That's all we've got, questions for you and stuff. So if anybody wants to find you anywhere online or wherever, what's the best place for everyone to look?
Okay. Well, nowadays, and I think for people, kind of following Matt and Phreds, I think video's the thing. So for videos, I've got loads of videos on YouTube. I have a couple of videos of the 17-piece Ray Charles. I have a couple of videos of the 11-piece Ray Charles at Pizza Express Soho. I have the videos of the songs that you've played, or a couple of them, the Wichita Lineman compared to what they're up there. And also a new show that I'm doing, which is like a history of Jewish songwriters from Gershwin to Amy Winehouse. So that they're on there. So videos wise, that's the thing. What I would really like, because I'm pretty local, and and play at Matt and Phreds, is for people to go to my Facebook music page. So I have a Facebook page, Jeremy Sassoon, but forget that, they don't want to see pictures of my mum on my holidays. Well, they might want to see it. I'd be worried if they did want to see pictures of my mum.
There's something for everywhere.
But my Facebook music page, so there's Jeremy Sassoon Music. And then same with Instagram, I have a Jeremy Sassoon music page. If anyone would follow or like those, I'd be well happy.
Well, that is good. We aim to please. We aim to make people happy. That's why we're here. So hopefully everyone will get on that. And thank you very much for coming and joining us and being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. It's been really great.
Thanks, guys. Lovely. I hope to see you in the club. We'll have a beer next time I'm in the club.
Oh God, I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely. The sweet taste of the golden nectar is going to be brilliant.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Oh, and also, before you go.
Oh, we're not actually going to go. That's the.
Oh yeah. Can I give a big shout out for Jordan Vincent? Because when I've been doing these Facebook Live gigs on Saturday, 5 till 6, raising money, I got one more left on Saturday, and he's been streaming it for Matt and Phreds, and we've been working together. He sends me texts throughout the show with bits of information, and he's been fantastic to work with. So big shout out for Jordan.
Yeah, a huge shout out for Jordan.
Big shout out to Jordan Vincent. We know him well.
I know you do.
He is brilliant, isn't he?
He's ledge. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll speak to you again very, very soon. Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Lovely indeed. And you know what? I've got to say, Ed, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Jeremy is such an interesting guy. He's lived such an interesting life, and I was just very pleased to have him on the show.
I was very pleased as well. It was everything I'd hoped and dreamed it would be. And, it's great to hear about how his album was recorded. Great to hear about how the NHS gigs came about as well. And just great to hear he's doing well in lockdown as well.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, I think that's about it, isn't it? That's about.
Well, I'm looking at my clock over here, Ed, and it's saying that it's end of podcast time.
That's quite alarming. Anything. End of podcast. You have a clock that gives you that alarm.
Oh, well, yes, it says end of podcast time, and then just after that, it says start of bedtime. So we better wrap this up before I fall asleep on mic. So the first thing to do is to say that if you guys want to get in touch with us, we have an email address. It's speakeasy@mattandphreds.com. That's Phreds with a PH. And just tell us what tunes you're listening to. Tell us how your lockdown's going. If you want to ask us any questions, or you want us to ask our artists and our guests any questions, just let us know. We're here for you.
And if you like what you've heard, you can find us at buzzsprout.com/speakeasy. You can also find us on the Matt and Phreds website at mattandphreds.com/podcast. You can also find us on Spotify. You can also find us on Apple Music. You can find us in so many places. There's almost not an excuse not to just listen. Just listen. It's going to brighten up your day. If you're working from home, you can stick it on. If you're going for a bike ride, if you're going for a run, you can stick it on as well. We're motivational people. I wouldn't say we're quite on a motivational speakers kind of level, but we're getting better and better.
We've got a positive energy about us, I think.
And if you hate our voice, just skip to the middle bit, and there's someone else talking about their great music. And
you can't say no to that, can you?
You could never say no to that.
But what else do we have to say, Ed?
We do have to say thank you to some people, and we don't even have to be honest. We just want to say thank you to Claire Turner for recording the beautiful intro. As always, we'd like to say thank you to William Mackenzie for the beautiful jazz you hit in between the tracks. David, who would you like to say? He's jumping the gun.
I'm jumping the gun. I apologise. We would like to say thank you to Sylvette for their fantastic track and being our local recommended track of the week. Please do check them out, and we would say a wonderful, a hearty, a wholesome thank you to Jeremy Sassoon for putting up with our terrible banter.
And we'd like to thank you for putting up with our terrible, terrible banter. Hopefully, we'll see you next Friday.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're a Friday night special these days.
Yeah,
the Sundays, they just weren't doing it for me, Ed.
No, Ant and Dec's Sunday night takeaway, it's not the thing, is it? I mean, they do it on
Saturday anyway, Ed.
Oh, no.
But you know what, Ed? We're getting in before Ant and Dec. We're going to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I don't think we can edit that terrible mistake I've just made out. But
so we're just going to have to roll with it.
We're going to have to roll with it, and we'll see you next Friday. If you made it this far, I sincerely apologise about that, but I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Next Friday. Oh, we're keeping it. I love it.